Hey everyone, we're going to be in Hebrews 10:26 through 31. Remember the argument in Hebrews 10:19 through 25 with me. The reason why you are to draw near to God, hold fast to the hope of the gospel, and consider how to stir one another up to love and good works is because you have confidence to enter the holy place because of the sacrifice of Jesus, and because you have a great high priest over the house of God. Then in verse 26 through 31, he first gives us a warning about apostasy and its consequences. And then in verse 28 through 31, he makes an argument from the lesser to the greater. If the punishment of the old covenant is great, how much greater is the punishment in the new covenant? God is just and his wrath is fearful. So he begins this word "for," connecting this warning passage, this warning, with what preceded it. Right? In verse 19 to 25, it described the appropriate response to the person and work of Jesus. Now, our text describes the inappropriate response to the person and work of Jesus. He explains why the exhortation to draw near, hold fast, are important. They're important because if a person turns from these truths of the gospel, if they continually neglect drawing near, holding fast, and meeting together, there is no forgiveness for them. Right? It says, for if we go on sinning deliberately after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins. Rather, but a fearful expectation of judgment and a fury of fire that will consume the adversaries. Now, to be clear, I don't think this passage is arguing that believers can lose their salvation. We've seen that in the arguments in Hebrews, right? John 6, John 10, Romans 8 argues that. But the seriousness of this warning, though, should still be at the front of our minds. This doesn't rule out the need for warnings. The warnings are used by God to help God's people persevere in the faith. Right? The warnings are used to achieve the end, the salvation of God's people, which God has promised. So this promise, this passage should motivate us to press on to the gospel, to look to the consequences of what it means to abandon God, and let that motivate us to press on. And then in verse 28 through 31, it makes an argument from the lesser to the greater. Anyone who has set aside the law of Moses dies without mercy on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. Right? They have set aside, just like this, they go on sinning deliberately, continually, with a high hand. They don't want God anymore. As 1 John says, those who completely abandon God shows that they were never with God to begin with. This person dies without mercy on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. Then, how much worse, right, argument from the lesser to the greater, do you think will be deserved by the one who has trampled underfoot the Son of God, and who has profaned the blood of the covenant by which he was sanctified, and has outraged the Spirit of grace? Living in sin and rebelling against our God is serious, and this passage shows us the consequences of continual rebellion and the spirit of unrepentance. For we know that God's justice and holiness is just as much as an attribute of God as his love and his mercy and his grace. And this is a passage that's urging believers to press on. Right? For we know, quoting from Deuteronomy, vengeance is mine, I will repay. And then again from the Psalms, the Lord will judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Remember that God is just and holy. Remember that no one escapes his wrath. And then remember what Hebrews 10:19-25 says, that we can have confidence to enter to the holy place by the blood of Jesus. And that we could continually draw near, hang on, don't look back, but look forward to the gospel. See you guys next time.